This episode of Nuff Said is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
I swore an oath to serve when everything else fails, to be humanity's last line of defense, to be the shield. Fury always said, a man can accomplish anything when he realizes he's a part of something bigger. A team of people who share that conviction can change the world. So what do you say?
If I was ambitious, I was going to say previously on Nuff Said, and then just try to edit all of Rob Southgate's thoughts.
Have like Rob 20 times saying, mark my words, mark my words, mark my words. No, Jack. No, Lil. Mark my words, mark my words.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Nuff Said, Southgate Media's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and All Things Marvel podcast. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, now and forevermore, my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozz. So, I just want to take a moment. I don't know what kind of intro we're doing for this, really, but I will say this. Nuff Said is the podcast that got me into podcasts. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was a young man. Well, not a young man, but I was at the YMCA. I was looking for a podcast on my phone to listen to as I went on the elliptical. And I was looking for who talks about comic books. And lo and behold, here came Nuff Said. And I listened to Rob Southgate and the gang, and I fell in love, and I listened to this every time I'm out, and I started to write to them saying, hey, you guys don't know anything about comics. Here's some nerdy things you may have missed. And this is what got me in. Rob Southgate definitely brought me into the podcasting world, and to now be here today as the new host of Nuff Said, it is for me like, you know, Jay Leno taking over the Tonight Show. It feels like this is the most I will ever do with my life, and I'm okay with that. So, I just wanted to get that out of the way before we go into this week's episode. Okay, so tonight's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Season 6, Episode 1, Missing Pieces. Scattered across the galaxy, the team works to find their footing in the wake of Lucy Coulson. Our director this week is the man himself, Clark Gregg. Writers, of course, with our created by credits, we get our Stan Lees, our Jack Kirby's, our Joss Whedon's, our Jed Whedon's, our Marissa Tankarian. These are the show created by credits. For those who don't know, Joss Whedon gets the credit for creating the show. Jed Whedon did all the heavy lifting. Marissa Tankarian, which is Jed's wife, I think, did most of his heavy lifting as well. Jed Whedon and Marissa Tankarian gets our written by credits for this episode. James C. Oliver is our executive story editor, along with Charla Oliver, also an executive story, and our hardest working person in show business. Our regular story editor doesn't get the executive suite or anything, is George. Okay, so to bring everyone up to speed, last season we ended just before Thanos attacked the Earth in Wakanda, and a young man named Graviton thought that he could turn the tide. However, as we saw in previous episodes, when Graviton essentially pulled all the gravitonium out of the Earth to gain unconscionable superhuman powers, he also destroyed the Earth. However, the upside is he also wound up destroying Thanos in that, and several Infinity Stones. So at that point, because Graviton destroyed the Earth, the rest of the universe got to survive.
Wait. So this is an alternative storyline to how Thanos was destroyed in the movies?
Well, so this is the so okay. So for those who don't know, Mozz has not been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. his whole life like I have.
Yeah, I'm joining the party right now, and I'm hoping to get caught up.
So in a previous episode, previously on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., there's lots of previous scenes that go on in this because there's a lot of things that come into this, but that's okay. I'm going to help you understand it, Mozz, and hopefully our listeners will enjoy that. Last season, here was the basic conceit of the plot.
Okay.
Previously, they had introduced what is essentially a teleportation device. Ancient Cree obelisk that, when all of the harmonics were right, would open up a space-time gateway to another location. This turned out to be how they would send essentially prisoners to a death world. Because upon this world, there existed a being called the Hive. The Hive is sort of the snake-headed god of Hydra.
Ah.
Okay, so that's the basic plotline of that. It can take a human form, but it's basically this collection of cells that is also a hive mind, gains all the knowledge of the previous host, yada yada yada, lives infinitely in this structure. Last season, or actually 2 seasons ago, we saw this device essentially pull Simmons, who is our science officer, our female science officer, to this world. She battles the Hive. She comes back to Earth. Hive comes back to Earth. Yada yada yada. Another storyline. This is actually like 3 seasons ago. Later, we come to there's a little interstitial storyline with the Darkhold and magic when Doctor Strange came out. And the creation of the framework, which was essentially the Matrix, but created by the Darkhold. And then last season, we find out that there is a Kree device that lets you travel in time, not just space. But that device takes you to this specific future after the Earth has been destroyed. And essentially what it comes down to is this really lovely debate about time travel. All the stuff that you wonder about in Endgame about time travel, you sort of get answers for in the way they handle time travel in last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And there's even this entire discussion about, is time a closed loop, or is it an ongoing thing? Or basically, as the Hulk says, if you go back in time, does it cause a paradox or not? Or it's like, no, it can't cause a paradox because you went back in time. Because you went back in time, so whatever you're changing, it doesn't really affect what you've already experienced.
Because that is also now part of your history.
Well, exactly. And that is essentially established last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So those of you who saw the last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you went into Endgame saying, oh, yeah, it's not like Hot Tub Time Machine at all. Although you can change history by things you do, or you can change the future by things you do in the past, so long as you're from the point in history that you're trying to change. Yeah, so it gets a little interesting, and Deke does not dissolve at the end, although they had the perfect shot. And at the start of this episode, so essentially what happened last season is when everyone gets pulled forward in time, Fitz, who got left behind, is informed by this alien Watcher type character, who's actually sort of an android.
Oh, so is that the person in the beginning of the episode? Okay.
Yeah, the tall bald guy. Yes.
Gotcha.
They made him look like a Watcher quite intentionally. They didn't have Watchers, but they created their own group of people to be. We're gonna call them Watchers, but they're not really the Watchers. So
because the Watchers are the short bald guys, right?
No, well, they're actually even taller. They're giants. They're literal giants.
Oh, but they're have the proportions of a giant head and
Yeah, giant head and a small body, yes.
Right. Gotcha.
But they're also like 20 feet tall. So.
Gotcha. So they're like Eitri.
Yeah, exactly. Except Ichi had a bigger body, so.
Right.
So if you imagine like a really thin, tiny, so if you imagine like a gray, but 20
Hmm.
feet tall.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, yeah. Anyway, so that's that. So because Fitz doesn't get taken into the future by the device that takes you into the future, because apparently it's like it can only be used like once you go to the future with it, then it doesn't exist in the past anymore. Fitz figures, well, the best way to get to the future would be going to some sort of cryogenic sleep, so that 75 years in the future, I can come out of that cryogenic sleep and help my friends in the future, which he does. They save the day. They go back to the present, which is when Thanos is attacking. There's a character named Graviton who is being played by Adrian Pasteur, whose character is Colonel Talbot, who is sort of the General Ross.
Yes.
Who attacks the Hulk?
Yeah.
Well, Colonel Talbot is like his right-hand man. And he also was in love with Betty and a whole slew of things there. In fact, he is actually, although I don't think he's played by Adrian Pasteur there, but if you see Ang Lee's Hulk, he's like the other guy that was like competing for Betty from Banner. So,
Gotcha.
In this storyline, he has gotten shot in the head, and he's several bubbles off level, but he gains the ability to absorb gravitonium, which is the MacGuffin metal, into his body. Now, gravitonium, because it's so rare, is something that the Kree are trying to acquire. And in fact, there's a great meme about this from last year, which is that you have the Kree in orbit around Los Angeles because they want the gravitonium, as Thanos comes to Earth to get his Infinity Stones, and they're like, "Oh, what are you guys doing here?" And they're like, "We're just here to get gravitonium." Was gravitonium powerful? It's like, no, not at all, Lord Thanos. Oh, what do you do here? It's like, I'm getting an Infinity Stone. Oh, are they powerful? No, I just want to grab a couple Infinity Stones, just to complete my collection. So that's the basic plot line. So you have these. So the idea here is that you had this conflicting. Basically, as I always say, this is what explains why it was this. Well, why didn't you just call Thor? It's like we didn't just call Thor because Thor was dealing with his own stuff at that time. As we'll see in Far From Home, when Peter Parker's like, "Can't you ask Captain Marvel or Thor?" It's like, no, they are doing their own things. You're on Earth. You're the one we're calling.
Right.
So in this moment, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are the only ones who know about Graviton, know what he's doing, and know his actions will literally destroy the planet. Now, they do stop Graviton, and then the story ends. Because after they stop Graviton and the aliens leave and yada, 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 we basically see the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That would have been a great way to end. And then, of course, Infinity War comes out, and then you get the snap, which we don't see in this storyline. Now, when we come into this story, we're in a place where, according to what we're being told, this is 1 year after, arguably, the snap.
Interesting.
Now, no one is mentioning the snap, but necessarily, would that be this is what I always say. It's like, do people talk about those global tragedies all the time? Presumably, and interestingly enough, Mac makes the point, it's, we all know what anniversary it is next week. Now, we don't know what anniversary it is. It's implied, if you're a new listener, that this could be a new viewer, that this could be the anniversary of Coulson's death, because they do say Coulson died. But at the same time, we don't know that that's the case. And it could be that Coulson was snapped.
Hmm.
We don't know yet. And from what we understand from those saying it, it's like, look, we had to write this without knowing about this. We knew about the snap, but we didn't know how it was fixed.
Hmm.
So we've got to sort of operate. We had to write and shoot these episodes without knowing what the actual outcome was. I don't
Oh, wow.
believe that for a minute. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that's just what they're, no, we were told, we didn't know, so we had to do it this way. I honestly think that the snap by 3 or 4 episodes and will get addressed. I think it's entirely possible they had to start shooting and writing some episodes before they knew about the snap, but they probably were told what not to say,
Right.
which is usually how these things work. Is they say, look, don't say this, 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 or this. And of course, if you're the TV group, you know you're always told what not to say. And you simply don't say it. And I'm sure there was a guy who said, okay, don't say this. You might want to say that, but don't say this, you know? Because
Right.
as you watch the show, you'll see that, yeah, we see that there are people around, but there obviously were people around. There were half the planet.
Right.
You know, half of all life was still there. And this is a year later, which means there's, you know, people are having kids, people are doing everything there is to be done. You know,
Right.
I mean, it's entirely arguable that, you know, given the fecundity of humanity, that, you know, about, you know, by 5 years, we're almost back up to where we were beforehand, you know?
Hmm.
Especially if now all of a sudden humans and every other animal feels like, you know what, we gotta.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? So, and we did see, for what it's worth, that government agencies still continued, that everybody managed to keep it going for 5 years after the snap.
Right.
Which means this 1 year time jump isn't that unusual to expect.
Right. So this is a year after Thanos' snap, not a year after the Endgame snap.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. So this is what's happening in that 5 year period.
Gotcha. Oh, this is cool.
Yeah, arguably. Now there is a little cop out that they give here, which is when when Simmons is in the half of ship that they've recovered,
Mm-hmm.
because they're looking for Fitz's, you know, cryo chamber.
Right.
She makes a point. It's times like this that make me regret that we're in an alternate timeline, or that we changed the timeline.
Right.
So it is entirely possible that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is no longer in the 616.
Okay.
That because they thwarted Graviton, or because of some other factor, that they altered the timeline enough that what we're watching is in a universe outside of that, outside of what's going on in the main superhero universe.
Right.
Which, you know, it's a fun thing. You know, we do get the shout out to the 616 in the new Far From Home.
Trailer.
But as I pointed out to someone, you know, everybody thinks they're in the 616 until they split. Which means if you thought you were in the 616 before, you may not realize that you're no longer in the 616.
That's so interesting.
Yes, because really, everyone thinks they're in the 616, and then suddenly we're not.
But why would they call the original the 616? Wouldn't the original be the 1?
Well, that is our good friend Alan Moore. Alan Moore is the one who came up with this idea of numbering all of the alternate universes. And as a delightful thing, he decided not to make it Earth A, Earth B, Earth 1, Earth 2, like they do in DC, because obviously that would be way copying. He decided that the main Marvel continuity would be the 616. Now, he has since gone back. I think he just randomly picked the number 616 because it sounded like an area code. But I think he picked six. But he says now that 616 was the number he picked because in the original Greek translation of Revelations, 616 is the number of the beast.
616.
Yes, 616 in Greek is the number that is given. When they translated the Bible to Latin, they made it 666.
Oh boy.
Which is why most scholars of the Bible will tell you that the beast is actually Caesar Nero, because where Caesar Nero's number is 616 in Greek, it is also 666 in Latin.
Wow.
Yes, it all comes around. But so that is the one creative idea that Alan Moore gave the universe, and it will exist forever. So thank you, Alan Moore, for all that you have given us.
Fair enough.
There we go. That's a drop Lilith will use later, I'm sure. That is like her saying, "I love Ben Riley." But because I'm always on an Alan Moore. But anyway, so it is arguable that the universe we're seeing here is a separate universe, apart from the overall MCU. And this may be something they're going to establish. Now, as a fun fact, that can be the case, and all of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. can still show up in the MCU, because there'll be the 616 versions of those characters. And these are now in the 618 versions, or the 66, or the 2618, or whatever you want to call them, 2619 versions of these characters.
Gotcha.
And what we're watching now, whatever we're watching, whether it is post-snap or on an alternate timeline, is the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We see Simmons in her quest to find Fitz. These two finally got together. They had a 5-season long, well, they won't they. And they finally they'd, and basically every time they say, let's be a couple, something happens. So previously, when they said, let's go on a date, Simmons got sucked into the space stone that sent her to the planet with the Hydra monster. This time, well, actually, there's two things that happened. First off, Simmons again got sucked into the time stone that sent her, well, the time monolith, not the time stone, so there's two different things. Time monolith that sent her to a future after the Earth had been destroyed, and then Fitz went into this space thing. Now, when Fitz caught up with them after he got thawed out, he goes back in time with them, but then his time travel doppelganger in classic Futurama temporal physics rules died.
Oh boy.
Because according to Futurama, time travel doppelgangers will always die horribly. Because you're not supposed to be in this time, you're a doppelganger.
Yeah, it's like an Inception when the subconscious mind starts fighting back.
Well, that opens up an interesting question about Gamora, because the Gamora in the current timeline of the MCU is, in fact, a time travel doppelganger from the past.
Right.
However, her proper self has already been removed from the space-time continuum by her sacrifice by Thanos to the Soul Stone. That said, when Captain America returns the Soul Stone to Vormir, it has been suggested that he may get a soul back from that. Now, he might get Natasha, but he might get Gamora if he doesn't get to pick. He'd probably give it back and hope he gets Natasha. Might get Gamora. Anyway, that's a fan theory. Crazy stuff as it is.
Yeah, but I guess, can you even return the Soul Stone, or is it that once you use it, it is automatically returned?
Well, no, because that was the interesting thing about the Soul Stone, as I pointed out, that apparently you only had to do that sacrifice once, because once they had it, Thanos could take it, Tony could take it back. There was no longer prerequisites that once it wasn't like, when you have the genie in the lamp and when someone else picks up the lamp, suddenly it's a whole new storyline with the genie and you don't get your wishes anymore. You only have the wishes while you hold the lamp. Soul Stone's not like that. Once it's off Vormir, it's like, yeah, I'm with whoever holds. So
right.
That's an interesting aspect of the Soul Stone. But back to this storyline, because we have talked nothing of this episode yet.
Right.
But a couple of things I really want to talk about. First off, Simmons's hair. It is a mess, and I so appreciate. So often, it doesn't matter how harsh the conditions are, how bad you are off. You know, female characters' hairs remain perfect,
Right.
and Simmons' hair is a mess. I mean, she does her best with it. Honestly, it's not like I'll say she looks slovenly, but clearly, her hair, it's like self-cut. It's tied up in a knot. It is definitely hair of a woman who has not had conditioner for a while and is working her best to deal with her best. And I love that fact that Simmons' hair is a mess. That's a little thing that I picked up on that I love.
That's cool.
Yes. Well, now Chloe's hair, Quake's hair is still perfect, but she's an Inhuman. So when you're an Inhuman, you get to have just perfect hair all the time. you know.
She's the one that can. She's the one that has powers, right?
Yeah, she's the one with the powers. Yes. So she's an Inhuman, so she has her powers, and she basically quakes things. And so that's why her hair is fine. The other girl, she had really short hair, and the guy, guys don't do anything. So in general, I was really impressed by the hair choices made by everyone in this episode. So big props for that. We find out that Yo-Yo and Mac are no longer together, but it's not like official. It's like we're just not together because, we're not currently with each other. We're living close by, but not visiting anymore.
Right. But isn't she having a thing with that other dude?
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that apparently she is doing a thing with another dude.
Right.
But at that point, her and Mac really weren't together because Mac has sort of pushed away everyone who's close to him.
Right.
Which I think is a bad choice on his part. But you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. And, not for nothing, the guy that Yo-Yo's with is not exactly... Basically, I don't think he's a guy who's going to fight for her if Mac decides he wants to come back and Yo-Yo decides she wants to be with him.
Right.
It's like, I kind of get the feeling like this is all like super cash for him regardless. So
Right, but I mean, it's the early goings of something. Shouldn't it be that energy right now until maybe it turns into something that warrants more connected feelings?
Not for nothing, you're 100% right, Mozz, especially in what is essentially an office space romance.
Right.
Which, even if it's not even frowned upon by the administration, is something that can cause problems, and everyone who's in it knows that.
Right.
So, anyway, that's some plotline we get there. We find out that there are essentially what I think we're going to get when we get to Far From Home is the idea that we're getting these dimensional incursions.
So the dimensional sort of tears that Fury mentions, or that Mysterio mentions in that trailer, are they caused by the initial Thanos snap, or do you think it was just the wear and tear of 2 or 3 snaps?
Yeah, well, what it is, it's 3 snaps in a circle, quite frankly. Let's be clear here, And, not for nothing, it's like the snap that Tony does is like the least powerful of all the snaps. It's like just those guys over there.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like it's like, oh, universe-wide. It's like, no, just this, like everybody who is on that side of the field, just all those guys.
Right. But then that brings up the question that if the other snaps haven't happened yet, would we still have tears right now?
Well, I mean, that is what is interesting. Now, this is where, here's the debatable question, is what universe are these people from?
Right.
We see Sarge, who is of course a doppelganger of Coulson. And he's coming in with his cool little semi-truck.
Yeah.
From the other alternate universe.
Right.
And so, to get you back into this, within the previous episodes, we had the Darkhold. The Darkhold is like the supreme evil magic book of the Marvel Universe.
Ah.
And this is like the Necronomicon from the Lovecraftian universe, where basically anyone who gazes upon it goes insane. The difference is that when you gaze upon it and you go insane, you go insane, but seem sane and seem to have a directed purpose. In this case, what it did was it created a universe in a framework. which was essentially the Matrix, which is a complex web of a virtual reality universe that all of our heroes got sucked into.
Ooh.
But in this universe, it was a universe where S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra weren't separate groups. It was like everyone knew that Hydra was in charge of the world. Everyone was cool with that.
Oh, interesting.
Now, that universe eventually died, but because it was created by a black magic book, my theory is that you're going to realize that these sort of evil doppelganger Coulsons and crew are actually from an offshoot of that Matrix universe.
Huh. So just like Agent Smith, they escaped.
Exactly. They escaped. And here's the thing. In that universe, Mac had a daughter.
Oh.
And my prediction is you're going to see his daughter come back. Mark my words. The thing we do on the Nuff Said podcast. When you have a crazy fan theory, you throw it out there and say, so mark my words, Mac's daughter will come back. And like Cassie, aged up a few years.
Huh.
Because now she's going to be a hardened, like, veteran of the Hydra Wars that everyone is trying to escape, or the Reality Wars. Because I did find it fascinating when, especially with the girl saying, "Oh, you'll be a butterfly," when the basketball shatters at the start of this and it turns into birds. That looked a lot like when Thanos was using the Reality Stone fighting Tony Stark in Infinity War.
Interesting.
Because that's the thing of this, is remember, yes, they don't really know what happened. You can argue, and again, I don't believe this for a minute. You can argue they didn't know what was going to happen with Endgame. They knew what happened in Infinity War by the time they started production on this season.
Right.
So everything that's in Infinity War is fair game. So when you see something that reminds you of Infinity War, that is intentional. And these reality warps, these changes in space-time, those are based on what we've already seen from that world. And this is the thing I pointed out earlier. When you see the bus, the airplane that they're on that now flies in space, when you see it access do a space jump, it looks like the Tesseract jump, rather than what we see in Captain Marvel and other stories, where they sort of create this octagonal grid, and you burst through the grid. This is clearly based on Tesseract technology.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's very interesting what they're doing with that.
All right, so who are the guys that step out of the handball court?
Well, the only guy no one that we know comes out of the basketball court.
Okay.
These are all new characters.
Huh.
So the big guy, the guy that gets turned into concrete, these are new characters, you know.
Gotcha.
You know, of course, Dr. Benson's a new character too. So there's not much you can glean from that. The only character that we know as a character is Sarge, who looks like Coulson.
Right.
And that's the only one that has a backstory that we're coming into.
Now, with as sort of predictable almost as it seems like he's obviously running a broader mission, right? And we're going to find out later that he was just pretending.
Well, I don't know if he's pretending. That's the thing. It's like I don't think he's pretending for a minute.
Huh.
I think he very much is part of this mirror, dark, this through the mirror darkly universe, and he's doing what needs to be done. He and his team are trying to solve a problem. And coming to this universe, whether they're just trying to escape it, or whether or not they actually have a mission once they're here.
Oh, so you think he's just a Coulson from another universe that's come to here to get something to save his universe? And they didn't have
pretty much,
shield.
Yeah.
Or they had something else, but he doesn't know what S.H.I.E.L.D. is because they called it something
exactly. Else. Yeah, because never heard of it,
Interesting.
He says Coulson rings a bell. If you saw the preview for next week, he says, Coulson, what does that mean? He says, I don't know, but it rings a bell.
Interesting.
So my honest opinion is I think he is from another universe. I think he is the Coulson of that universe, although that he is Coulson is maybe forgotten to him. Clearly, there's a lot of cybernetics going around in this universe, so you could get some nice little Deathlock tech. We certainly could get Deathlock back in this,
So he could be, like, in his universe, he might have gotten Manchurian candidated.
Mm-hmm. Anything's possible. Or he's fighting against, he's fighting against whatever is in that universe, which could be the Dread Dormammu, who is often tied to the Darkhold. That's why I think the Darkhold is coming back in this.
Huh.
The Darkhold is a part of Marvel lore. It is, here's the thing. Anything that happened before Endgame is fair game for them.
Right.
So if they want to bring in Dormammu, if they want to call out to Cloak and Dagger, which is another great show out right now, they can do that in this series, They can call out, although they can't have any of the Netflix people in it.
Right.
They can certainly call out to them because they have in the past. You'll remember that the Judas bullets, when they came out on Luke Cage, suddenly they showed up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Interesting.
Like, 2 episodes later, yeah.
Huh.
So these guys are definitely in the Netflix universe. And so this may be how they introduce Netflix folks, and we'll see what happens next.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of coolness. Right now, it's, the first episode always has a lot of questions, always has a lot more questions than it has answers. But I, for one, am very excited about this new season. I think that we're going to get, it's a basic storyline when we come in, but I think what is going to make it interesting, there's going to be a lot of twists along the way.
Right.
One thing that I will always say about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is that they're going to lead you down a thing that me as a comic book nerd, I'm always like, oh, it's going to be this is the thing, this is what's going to happen next. We're always waiting for the Atlanteans. And then what makes Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to me a really good series is that when I'm waiting for Atlanteans and they don't show, I am so excited by what they did instead.
Huh.
So hopefully Josh and Jed and Marissa keep this show going great. I'm glad that Greg gets to sit in the director's chair and still has a character on the show. And I'm excited about this season. How about you, Mozz?
It seems interesting. Everything that I've heard so far, you tell me about it being an alternative universe is very fascinating. And to get a sense of how people actually did get to move on and build society again post the first snap is very, very interesting as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we don't have a lot to go on yet, but I've really enjoyed being here on Nuff Said. I can't wait to do next week and talk to you all about the next episode, which will be titled, I don't know yet. Doesn't have a little thing here to see what the next episode's called yet. But this episode was missing pieces. Next episode is Window of Opportunity. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Mozz, if people would like to talk to you about their windows and opportunities they have for us and for them, how can they find you?
Well, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our Mozz and Poz wants to do that, superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all a single word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Cloak and Dagger, and anything else that I happen to be able to stay up for that night. At Charlie Esser, that's CHARLIESSER. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
Ping!
For quality.
That was a really enthusiastic ping.
That was a great ping, Mozz. I'm so glad you are the one who pings. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so proud to be able to say this for the first time here. Again, this is a show that doesn't have a really formal sign off, but it does have a classic one. In honor of the great Stan Lee, we shall all say, Nuff said.